Well, welcome everyone to our talk today. And this is part of our series with the WOW project. So Web of Wellbeing is going to launch on October the 6th, which we're very excited about, to really raise awareness of and the voices of young people that are tapping into their innate health and well-being. And so part of that we know is reaching out to the adults that surround young people. And Denise is going to speak today on what she has, her understanding of the principles and how she's brought that into sport and working with young people. I'm excited to hear what she has to say. I've watched her evolve over the last few years. We've become really dear friends, and so I'm just really excited to have you here, Denise. So I'll hand it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Quinn. And thank you to everyone for joining me. It's really lovely to have you here. And I know this goes out later on, but it is really special to have people here when we're actually speaking for the first time. So I thought I would just sort of start because just a quick intro as to my, how is it, I guess I feel qualified to talk about performance. And my career as a national athlete started in 1989, and I competed for Hong Kong in the Asian Championship. And then I went on for my sport netball, which you may or may not know, but it's like basketball. And I was living in Hong Kong, and I then went on to do another Asian Championship and 2 World Championships. So as an athlete, I had the physical body and I really trained very hard. But I never really conquered the mind, and it was something that really bothered me. It really made me quite poorly at times. And so, but there was this drive to keep going. And so when I came back to England in 1997, as many did when the Chinese took over Hong Kong, I then went straight into the England system to be an England technical coach. And I did 8 years in their high performance group. And I was very proud to be part of that group and to start to lead a lot of the England players. And as you may know, England are 3rd in the world for their sport, netball. So it was a pretty high level that we were, it was the best our country had. And so I then kept going, and I felt I was kind of being a bit guided, but I was striving to be the best I could be. And I, at the time, thought that was what everybody did. And so I ended up to be a Super League coach, which was one of the 9 franchises in the UK. And I ran a franchise for 7 years, and we were pretty much always top 4, but we never won it. And I was always very curious about, if you like, the intricacies of the mind and how it is that we can show up as athletes, and sometimes we can absolutely smash it, and other times we completely underachieve. And so I went headlong into finding out what is it I needed to find out. So my own career then took me to Scotland to be their national coach for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow 2014. And I did that role for 4.5 years. And I had 46 international caps with Scotland, and we went from 17th to 12th in the world, and we qualified for the Commonwealth Games, which was the first time historically Scotland's netball has ever been in the Commonwealth Games. And that was really curious, but still I was intrigued by how it is the mind was working. And so what we had, the best I had at the time, was that I thought we had to control the mind, because it seemed that got in the way of performance. And so I went kind of, okay, so how do you do that then? And I'd already spent kind of 15 years involved in mental skills development. So all sorts of techniques, positive self-talk, visualization, NLP, affirmations, all sorts of stuff, visualization, to see if we could help control the mind so that we could show up and perform and get the results that we wanted. And I was actually, some of you may have heard this story, but very quickly, I was actually in Singapore at the Six Nations Cup, and Scotland had been undefeated going into the undefeated for 5 games, and including Wales. And Scotland and Wales are obviously great rivals, but there was just this ease about it. It was really fluid, and all the players were just really enjoying themselves, and it was just wonderful. And at the time, I was very much into kind of the chimp paradox written by Stephen Peters's work, in terms of controlling the chimp. So controlling your mind in order to get it quiet enough, in order to be clear enough, in order to have your skill capacity available to you on demand. And here's the thing, is I thought that that's what was causing our fluidity and I thought, oh, that works, that's great. And I attributed our ease of performance and availability of all our lovely skills and perceptual field, I attributed that to all of this great management that we were doing with our mind. Until 3 days later, we played Wales in the final, and suddenly I had nothing to control my mind. Like, suddenly this was not just the same as the other 5 games. Suddenly this was very different. And I just had no bananas to calm down this chimp. And I knew at that point that, you know, oh my word, there's something else going on here, because there was nothing I had that was able to help me to stay in the game, basically. And we went out against Wales, and we lost to Wales by 23 goals, and we'd previously won and beaten Wales by 7 in the 3 days before. So it was a kind of a disaster, but it was a big wake-up call for me, because at the point then I thought, well, it's not then about trying to get into an optimal state, because there's the fluidity and the ease and the joy that we felt in those first 5 games. I then realized, well, no, they didn't come from any of those techniques, Denise, you're kidding yourself. That was just there anyway. And so that started kind of me looking in this direction of human performance in a really big way. And then, as some of you may know, I found myself then out of the role and not going to the Commonwealth Games 18 months out. And this is really curious, because I've been thinking about this recently, is that we think that it's really good for us to have a clear mind, and then wisdom shows up. But when I look at it, I am driving home from Scotland really not feeling great at all, very disappointed, you know, out on my ear, really. 18 months out of a Commonwealth Games that I'd basically my dream job for 25 years. And I came across, funnily, at the motorway services, can you believe that, Jamie Smart's book Clarity. So here I am, completely on my backside, and there it is. And I actually put my hands up and said, can you give me something to keep me occupied for the next 3 months, because this is really painful. And there it was. So I was in a state of turmoil, and then I had this thought pop up, which sent me to this shop, which directed me to this shelf. And then I started to see just recently, and it's very interesting, isn't it, that we look to see if we can get ourselves into this optimal state. And there it was, quite naturally, for me anyway. So that's kind of the background in terms of where I see now performance. And I've been working with athletes in my own sport, and in terms of their technical and tactical abilities, as well as their mind. And it's been just wonderful to do that. And I've also been working with other students, so we can call them students, who are nothing to do with netball at all, but have put themselves under some pressures, and also some that have got some anger management issues. So it's a kind of quite a range of young people that I've been working with. So when I look at the in terms of education, there's a few things that have come up quite clearly in terms of our, if you like, cultural conditioning, that we're, in terms of exams and stress and performing, there's a lot of stuff that the young people are telling themselves. They're getting caught in a lot of beliefs that culturally it seems to be, I don't know, it seems to be epidemic proportions, because the effect of the way in which they're using their minds and the behaviors that some are choosing to go to is really unproductive and really not helpful. And even this week, I just thought I'd just read out just a couple of things that the students said to me this week, and they had no idea that they didn't have to think this. None. And in 2 days, and basically the ones I'm going to read out is the after the effect of, this was before and then after the effect. We did 10 hours and we did 2 days, and I had the first group, I just had 3 students for 3 athletes for 10 hours, and this was the next session. But generally I do about 10 hours, whether I do 1 and a bit per session and just do 4 or 5 sessions, something like that. But 10 hours is just something that it seems to be that they see something really nice and helpful in that time, and it can be less or more, but that's just a sort of a gauge. So some of the things I said to the athletes, so what is it that you are experiencing when you're performing? And when we look at sport, of course, this could be performing in exams, and it can be performing in art or music, it doesn't matter. And here are some of the things that they said. The first thing they said is not being good enough. They are scared of not being good enough. They are terrified of not reaching the expectations, their own and those of their peers, and those also of the teachers. Their disappointment it seems to be huge. Like they have levels of disappointment and experiences of disappointment before they've even gone anywhere near the exam hall or the performance, because they really don't want to disappoint themselves, and they certainly don't want to disappoint the coach or the teachers. So again, there's all this thinking going on. One that really surprised me this week was being watched. I was just so shocked that this young athlete's entire experience at a selection was so scary because she couldn't bear to be watched. And when we looked behind that, it came down to her experience of being graded and being judged. So much that they're telling themselves, and they become belief systems and perspectives and philosophies from a very young age. They compare themselves a lot to others, and they really don't like to be the odd one out. They want to fit in, they want to be the same as the others. And being the odd one out for this particular group, they were 14 years old girls, was really a problem for them. And so I'll just go through the list and we'll talk about how this was affecting their performance. So yeah, that's kind of, and the other one is embarrassment and shame. And by this time I was struggling to hold it together, I have to tell you. And I could see it in their faces. I could see it in their eyes. It was real. It was real for them. And so we started our training, and the whole thing that we're pointing to here is that all of that level of noise, level of activity, belief systems, ideas they have about themselves. And here's the thing, is their ideas of who and what they are as a human being. Like they had no idea that there was something else going on, even though they really sensed it when we started to work. It was easier for them to sense it, but even though they could quite logically see that, they've grown up from a baby and they've grown to a toddler, and there's this there's this intelligence that's helping that to happen. Well, yeah. and so we had to, we got really quiet with them to help them to see that. But I think the main thing for me here was to really to help them to see that they're not their thinking, and that could, the nature of it and the fact that it comes and goes, and that they're not the ideas they have of themselves, and they're not the ideas they have of other people either. And so we started our training, and what was lovely is that as athletes, and this happens for all parts of any field, there'll be something that they absolutely resonate with as what we would call the divine intelligence at play, right? So they talk about this zone state and this time when they really loved playing and it was great, and they didn't have any of that going on. And so I was really able to pull on that and to start to point them in that direction. And to, over the course of the 2 days, we did the physical, and then we did a little bit of, talking about their mind and the nature of thought, and thought creates feeling, and where their feelings are coming from, not all these things on the outside of them. And then it just really was so helpful. They just started to light up and be able to feel what it was like to have thinking and not take any notice of it. Like they didn't think that was on the table. They didn't think that was an option for them. And actually at first they were like, what? And then they started to see it, that, yeah, you mean like, yeah, I have thinking, and there's stuff I don't go with. Well, yeah, it's cool, isn't it? So maybe you don't need to go with any of it, actually. And then we started to see the nature that it comes and goes. And that was so helpful for them to see that they are not their thinking. And that was one of the quotes, actually, in the final feedback, is that negative thoughts are not you. That's what she said to me. I said, what have you learned? She said, negative thoughts are not you, and I don't have to take any notice of them, actually. And it was just beautiful to see the effect of that. And we did the 2 days, and they lit up, and the effect, technically, we went from sort of around 60% to 90% in 2 days on a technical shot. And that one of them had real solid thinking. It was really real to her around, she didn't want to change her technique. And unfortunately, biomechanically, it's not the international shot. And so if she wanted to go further, she would have to change. That's just one of the things in the world, the physical form, right? And after the first little teaching set and discussion and connect, when our connection was really good, then I was able to put in some nice little teaching suggestions and points. And I look round and she's just trying her new shot. She's just giving it a go. And I left it open to her and I said, you'll know what to do. I won't need to tell you to change your shot. You'll know what to do. You know that feeling deep inside of you. She's like, yeah. I said, well, what does that say? And then it was, well, what if I can't do it? Yeah, all the barriers. What if I can't do it? What if I look stupid? What if I've got a match next week? What if, I said, well, what have we learned about that? And she just looked at me and, yeah, well, I don't need to take any notice of that, I guess, do I? And I'm like, if it's not serving you, I would just let that one go. And just the fact that we can point people, young students, to the fact that they don't have to take any notice of their thinking, they don't have to take it seriously if it's not serving them, was so helpful. And she just changed her shot, and actually by the end of the 2 days she was the best shooter of all of them. She was unbelievably accurate. I couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa, that is a beautiful shot. And so I guess, and we'll open it up for questions in a second, but I guess what happened then was we had the 2 days, and then I've seen all of them just Monday for their follow-up one-to-one, and they got 2 follow-up one-to-ones. And I was just really, really curious about what else had landed for them, and what did they notice. And I love that one of them said, well, normally when my sister annoys me, I really don't like it. And when she annoys me, I say horrible things. And she stopped. I said, no, go on, you can tell me. She said, well, my sister can't annoy me, can she? And so I think, well, I didn't do it. I didn't say anything because I knew that my sister couldn't annoy me. And it was just a whole behavior then, and a response in life in that relationship has now changed. And she might get caught up, as we all do, get caught up in our thinking as if it's real, like it's on our eyeballs. But now she knows that there is this distance that she can get from her perspective, and that she can take that distance and just let what happens naturally happen. Like, they could really see that the mind clears all by itself. And the way I really got them to see that was just very, very connected to winning and losing. So I said to them, what do you feel like when you lose a game? Well, they're all different, actually. Yeah, some get really annoyed. Some are like, oh, okay, it's okay, we'll get it next time. And the other one was, yeah, I do get a bit annoyed, actually, frustrated with myself. And I said to them, well, what do you make of that? Like, that's all different. So how come the result can cause you that? Because it's all different. Surely if it caused you that, it would be the same. And they were like, oh, yeah. And then I said to them, how long does that last? And that was when we had some light bulb moments of, yeah, you're right. Like, yeah. So, yeah, the next day, maybe until the next session, but it was again all different. And so very quickly, using an example which is real to them, they were able to see that their experience didn't come from the thing they thought it come from, and that it was coming from thought in the moment and nothing else. And that their mind, yes, this is it. The experience had something to do with the change in the experience, has something to do with time. They said, well, you do get over things. I said, well, yeah, that's cool. Let's have a look at that even more. And that's when we got into this You do get over things, but it really doesn't have anything to do with time. The mind just happens. The mind just happens to clear. That's the nature of it. And it does it all by itself. And so we talked about all the other things then that happen all by themselves. All of this beautiful intelligence is happening. And, you know, I just said, you know, girls, are you responsible for your heart beating right now? Like, you know, are you really on that? And they're like, no. And it was just beautiful. And so just to conclude before we have questions, one of the things that I did, which I don't normally do with young kids, but they'd seen so much in such a short space of time, that I did this, I said, I asked this student to go to that space where it's really flowy. She said, oh, my game yesterday, it was really flowy and it was really lovely. I said, go there now. Go there now. Let's just go there to that beautiful space. I said, is it peaceful there? She said, yes. And then all the things, and I said a couple of us, is it a happy place you can feel right now? And they said yes. And then the things that she had a problem with, I then repeated back to her. And I said, I think she was the one who didn't like to be watched. I said, is there you not wanting to be watched there? And she said, no. And it was just lovely. And I said, and what about your expectations of yourself? Is that there? She said, no. And then we started to get into this, looking at the nature of the personal mind versus the impersonal, this energy and this flow, that which creates this beautiful flow state in us. And that was just amazing for 14-year-olds. I just thought that just blew my mind this week, that she was actually able to go straight to the space and then tell me all of the things that she used to have in her mind when she was going into performance and exams. And you know, is there stress there? And she just laughed. No, she went, there's no stress here. And I said, how lovely is that you've got that right here. It's right here. And it was amazing for her to see. I said, you don't have to go anywhere to get that which you already are. And her face, she was just so beaming, because we started to talk about exams and stress and school life, and she just said, the stress is not out there. It's here in her imagination. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been talking for a while, so that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm happy to answer some questions, if you have any, about my experience working with the kids or about how I see performance. So, but thank you,
Denise. It's absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much. Anybody's got any questions? Comments? Everybody's gone very quiet.
yeah. Lovely state.
Krista, let me unmute you.
Thanks.
Go for it, Krista.
Denise, that was so beautiful to hear how you work with these 14-year-olds. I have some comments, but my question is, did these girls sign up for something specifically to do with netball performance?
Yeah, they did. The three girls, it was a 3-day immersion, which is a new thing. It's not done in the UK. And it's an immersion training which kind of links, helping them to understand how their mind works. At the same time, we are developing their netball technical tactical skill development.
Wow.
we're using sport really as an avenue to help them to connect with their resilience and well-being, that which is there always.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's beautiful how you trusted that these young girls had that deep feeling and could follow the logic, and the self-discovery of that I just think is so powerful. And to hear how they can see how it's so transferable to other areas of their life is just, it just kind of gives you shivers as to, you know, from where you started and saying all the list of things they believed because of the culture and 14 years of believing that, however many, and how it can just vanish, and how they can see a deeper logic.
I know.
Beautiful.
Yeah. The thing that I guess blew me away with these girls is that when we were in the room, we were one. Like I'm an adult, they're kids.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no chronological, there was no difference between us. And I don't know that I've really ever felt that like that before, because I kind of just allowed myself to lose anything that I thought I knew, even about netball, even about the sport that I've known for 20 years, right? And I allowed us to just create, because there was only 3, and it was, you know, I'd chosen the wrong dates, and for whatever reason, people hadn't signed up yet. And I thought, well, I did have some thinking around numbers and cancelling. Oh, no. I had a deeper sense of, let's just do it. Let's just connect with these kids and write a program potentially for England. All right. This could go to England netball, which is national level. And I thought the only way I'm going to be able to do that is for us to be one, for us to really connect, and for us, all the kid. I'm expecting the kids to eventually leave their stuff, right? Leave it outside. Let's go there. So I needed to do that too. Yeah. And it was lovely as we discovered our true self together. And I was very open with them, and I told, you know, personal stories with them, and how I get caught up and how I lose it, but that I've always got this understanding which has the capacity to snap me into what's really going on and who and what I am as a human being always. And it's in the seeing. And one of the things I noticed as well is in our chat is, as a group, was their empathy and compassion for other people.
Wow.
Because one of the girls would get quite annoyed. She was quite feisty. She would get quite annoyed when other people said horrible things. And suddenly she's not getting annoyed now. Her entire experience in her mind of somebody saying something derogatory or horrible, she would say, is they're just having a bad day. Right? Well, you've got this massive expansion in that moment of understanding, and, you know, in this work we call it, you know, an expansion of consciousness, but you could feel that is totally going to change the way they behave. It's they're going to respond to that person in a completely new way, which wasn't available to them before they had this understanding that their experience was coming through them. It was coming, being projected out into the world. It wasn't coming at them. So they couldn't, one, blame anybody for their experience anymore. Like it takes blame off the table in young people. And then they can kind of just, they can take some level of responsibility, I suppose. And I know there's loads more to see in terms of you know, are we really in are we really in control of our states of mind? But that goes a bit deeper. But at least to have a chance now to kind of wake up to their experience, and is it serving them, and is it serving others? And so, yeah, they were much more compassionate at the end of that program than at the beginning in terms of the chat. And I think I was able to get there. Really, my big key there was just be on a level, just be the same as they are. Just, and you haven't even got to be it. You just are it.
Right.
You just are it. And when you get over yourself, and I know there's no one to get over because you're making it all up, right? But you know, it's quite humbling, isn't it? Just to get away from the belief that age and seniority and experience and expertise gives you anything. Like intellectually maybe, but actually that's not it.
It can even do the opposite. It can trip us up and we miss the bigger picture.
A lot of the time that's what happens.
I love, Denise, that you would ask those girls to, however you put it, to be in that space now, and how they were able to do that.
I have to confess, I've not done it before.
No, it sounded fresh and new, and I'm loving the sound of it.
It did just sort of come up, and I did second guess it as well when it came up, and I thought, no, just do it. Just ask them. Just ask her now.
Mm-hmm. Powerful.
And it was powerful to go there straight away, because otherwise, what I've seen in my coaching with adults is that they report it. They report their feelings they report their experience from another state, from another viewpoint. People, and I have to say, no, tell me now how you feel about it. Like, they tell me now in this moment, and then very quickly they go, and she said this, and I can't, and he said this, and I just no, come back. And it's been a bit of a learning curve for me to help people not to report stuff, but to just be in that experience. Tell me now how it is for you when you think about those things. Don't go there. Don't kind of go into that time. I want to know now in this time. And then they get to hear themselves.
And it's a big surprise, I'm sure.
Oh, they hear it. They hear that.
Yeah.
In the UK, we have soaps, right? So I know we have soaps all over, but it's the Coronation Street. You know, it's the EastEnders chat. There's just no way that you can reach somebody if they're already engrossed and attached and they're in their story.
You made me think of another British show, Are You Being Served? Oh, wow, beautiful. Just fabulous. Lucky girls. And I agree. If you run it with 3 or 300, everyone is precious. I'm glad you went for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Is there anybody else that would like to ask a question? The Gula, or would you like to comment or have any questions? Or was it Terry's hand up?
Hey, Terry.
Hi, Denise. Thanks for that. Really inspirational. Lovely to hear what you were saying. I've been invited into a school to work with, this is the head teacher's report, 10 unteachable boys. So I'm going to take 5 on one day, 5 on day 1, and 5 on day 2.
Yeah.
Day 3 is reporting the results, and there'll be teachers looking and sort of seeing what happens. And just listening to you just fills me with reassurance, actually.
Oh, lovely.
It's what we know. It's what we know to be true. It is the truth.
Yeah.
So we're not sort of selling a belief system, or it's
No.
just, it literally is how our systems work. And yeah, you know, I was nodding along with everything you were saying. It's just, it's so lovely and inspirational to hear. And I was one of those girls, you know, I couldn't bear the thought of someone writing a report in front of me, because I never saw what the report said, or listening to teachers talking that could have been about me. I would have made all sorts of things up about that. And I could relate to what they were saying. And equally, as a school leader, sort of wanting to reach those children without this understanding, and knowing there was more than what I had to show them, but doing the best with the tools that I had at the time. And I am so, this really is the missing link for me, certainly. And I just wanted to say congratulations. You know, you're doing an amazing job, and it really is inspirational to come along and listen to these talks. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you.
I really enjoyed it also, Denise. I just, it just seems so natural how that experience was, you know, and how it evolved for you. And I mean, there was a lot of nuggets that you said, but one that just really resonated was how you connected and you were one.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I've had that experience in the classroom, when that moment happens, it's so beautiful. I mean, it's just so refreshing. And it doesn't matter if they are, you know, 6 years old or if they're 18, there's a nice feeling that comes with that. And there's a meeting of the minds. It popped up in an experience I had with a group that, you know, there was some challenges and we had to resolve it. And that oneness came together so beautifully that we knew that was the answer, and the problem was gone. And it was so instantly, you know. And I hadn't really looked at that experience as the oneness of mind. So thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I think I don't know which principles teacher, I think it might be Michael Neal, who says that that space does the heavy lifting. Like, and it's so true that when you fall out of your personal chat and you just connect on that same level, irrespective of age. And I really say that because I don't know that us adults, and especially, you know, teachers who, you know, really, you know, they've done a great profession and are there to teach our children. I don't even know that that's a concept that, or an idea that is kind of makes any sense to them. But when you look beyond your intellect over that, it makes total sense that wisdom has nothing to do with age. It has nothing to do with the form of these physical bodies at all, because we're all pulling from the same resource, the same infinite potential. And that's been very humbling for me. And I can rely on that. I absolutely rely on the fact that I can just be with whoever I'm with in front of me, no matter who they are, what they're going through, how old they are, or any of my own preconceived ideas as to what's going on. I just go, no, you don't know, Denise, and actually it's irrelevant. Not always. Sometimes I have stuff hanging about, but when I'm looking in the direction of that feeling of real here-ness and sameness, and that which we're experiencing here, which is just that beingness, and I look in that direction, everything just falls into place, kind of all by itself. Like we so don't have to be on it. And I didn't trust it for a long time. And now I'm like, why wouldn't I trust it? Like, you'd be foolish to think that you could be on it, Denise. Really, like, yeah. And I still hear my foolishness. Don't get me wrong. I still hear it. And sometimes I don't hear it and I just go for it. So, and act a complete idiot probably. But that's in my innocence, right? And we all do it. So at least we've got the opportunity to share with young people that they, in a moment, can take the distance and fall back into their peace of mind and their clarity and their joy, that is their birthright, not the struggle of trying to get the form right. That's the conceptual side and the conditioning side of human life. And we can still be inspired. One of the things I did, I'll just share this sort of to finish, because this is what kind of my latest fresh new thing, right? is I got them to feel the difference in their physical activity coming from a space of peace and joy versus trying to get the ball in the basket. It was so different. And they would go, oh, no, now I'm trying. And as soon as they were trying, and the same as exams, as soon as you're trying to get that information out and please everybody, you're not going to be free. And they felt the difference in between trying and expecting it to go in and trying to make sure it goes in versus just, we had this saying, it's just you and the post. No matter where you are in the game, what the score is, what the coach is doing, because a lot of the coaches scream and shout. No matter what they're doing, it's just you and the post. It's such a sacred, intimate expression. And we talked about the naturalness of babies, going from babies to, crawling to up on their butts and then finding their way to the coffee table. And I said, no, nobody's teaching them to do that. They just do that. That's a natural expression of human life. And your expression of being a netball shooter or a great geography student is just your expression. It's coming through you. And we have no idea why we're good at what we're good at. But just love it and just feel it and enjoy that feeling. And have nothing else going on, have nothing else on it. And it will be absolutely fine. And so even when they were making mistakes and it wasn't going in, by the end of it, we had no reaction to that at all, because they could see that the baby, in its natural progression to get to the coffee table and stand up, is going to have to fall down hundreds of times. And no one's teaching the baby to walk. The babies don't get walking lessons, right? They don't get finding your finger lessons and putting your fingers in your mouth lessons. Babies don't have that. It's designed, it's integral, it's part of our design. And they really saw that. And they said, we're no different. Just because you're 14 now and you're no different, you're just carrying on your development. Me too. It's all just happening inside, and we can trust that we'll have what we need when we need it. It was, that was really cool to see that, and I loved that part of the training. The difference between trying and it being natural. coming from a natural state rather than coming from a personal state, come from an impersonal state. Beautiful.
Oh wow, Denise, that just perfectly kind of concludes this amazing webinar. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Just before we sign off, I don't want to kind of Trin and Gula, you haven't had really opportunity. Is there anything that is on your mind or you want to ask Denise before we sign off? There's a nod. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Lars. You've gone now, but that was lovely. Really lovely session, lovely feeling. I could stay in this feeling in this room with you for all night.